Hey guys, back at it. Welcome to my channel. It's Ms. Matthews here. So again, I'll be doing fourth grade social studies with you, and today we're going to be learning how to read a timeline and how to pull information from a timeline. So I know most of you have probably seen or heard of a timeline. A timeline is just literally a line of events. So it has different dates on it, and it shows you a bunch of dates and events that happened during that time. And it's just a big long line that tells you that. So I have magically discovered the history of Cheetos. So I have my timeline right here. So it has when Cheetos was invented all the way until the last type of Cheeto that was invented, which was in 2013. So when you're reading a timeline, you start left to right. So when you read, you start left to right, just like with the timeline, you read left to right. So it starts right here. It starts with 1948. So it says right here, 1948 is when the Crunchy Cheeto was invented. So that's when it was invented and put out into stores and whatnot. Also, before I even continue even further, there is this legend. You see this legend up here? Sometimes they'll have a legend where it has different colors. So you see how 1948 has is red, and then this one is green, this one is blue. So it has different colors. So the blue means discontinued. That means it's no longer in stores, no longer available to you. Green means it's a current flavor, so it means that it's still around and still people are enjoying it. And then red means invented. So 1948 is when the Crunchy Cheeto was invented because it's red. All right, so when you go left to right on a timeline, you're getting younger and younger and younger. So, so if I was born in, let's say, 1998, because I was, and you were born sometime in the 2000s, you would be younger than me. So you're going to be closer to the right. So let's see. We have the Crunchy Cheeto was invented in 1948. Then we have the Cheeto Puffs were invented or is a current flavor in 1971. So 1971 is closer to now than it was then 1948. So the Cheeto Puffies are younger. Okay, does that make sense? Again, you can pause this video if you need to, but the Cheeto Puffies are younger than the Crunchy Cheetos. Okay, so let's say we have a question. You have to figure out what the time difference between the two. So let's say we have Cheeto Puffies, and you're trying to find out how many years went by between Cheeto Puffies and the Flaming Hot Cheetos. So I'm gonna give you like 10 seconds. I want you to try to figure it out. How are you going to figure out how much time passed between the two? All right. So first we're going to figure out how much time passed between the two by subtracting the bigger year, so 1992 subtracted by 1971. So I want you to get a piece of paper. I want you to subtract how many years between the two. So once you subtract those two, you'll find how much time has gone past between the 2 years. So I want you to pause the video, actually pause it, and actually work it out. So subtract 1992 minus 1971. Go ahead, pause it. All right, so the answer you should have gotten is 21. So 21 years have gone by since the Cheeto Puffies were invented to the Flaming Hot Cheetos, because I know that's all of your favorites. So 21 years went by. Okay, Does that make sense, how I am explaining this? So the arrows are pointing to the year, but it also has it up here. So the arrow is pointing to 1992. That's when Flaming Hot Cheetos was invented. Also, the Flaming Hot Cheeto Puffs were invented in 1999. Again, the blue means discontinued. So they're no longer being, being produced and put out into stores. Like this one sounds nasty. Cheeto Puff Pizza Puffs. So since it's discontinued, it has its lifespan. So its lifespan is how long it was in stores. So from 2001 to 2006, it was in stores. So Cheeto Puff Pizza Puffs does not sound good, but it was in stores for about five years. So let's look at this one. So what about Baked Cheetos? So 2004. Which one is younger? So remember, when it's younger, it's closer to the right. So it's going to be closer to 2020. Where we are now, it's going to be closer to this one. So 2020. So we have Baked Cheetos. Which one is younger, Baked Cheetos or extra flaming hot Cheetos? I'll give you a second. Go ahead, pause it. All right, so I think the extra flaming hot Cheetos are younger because it's closer to 2020. They were invented in 2008, but Baked Cheetos were invented in 2004. Okay, so whichever one is closer to the beginning of it is older. So all this stuff this way is older than all this stuff this way. Now, when you're reading a timeline, the beginning of the timeline, so this is the start of the timeline, 1948, all the way to 2022, that's the span of the timeline. So if you have a question on maybe a test or something where it says, what is the span of the timeline? You would give 1948 to 2022 because those are all the numbers that are on the timeline, or all the years that are on the timeline. All right. Good. All right. Thumbs up. All right. So I know y'all love Cheetos. I know you love Cheetos. So but we actually have to relate it back to history a little bit. So I have another timeline. I'm going to pull it up, and it's about. I didn't mean to stop sharing. Hello. There we go. All right, so I have another timeline. Let's see if I can get to it. There we go. And it's about the life of Abraham Lincoln. Okay, so I want you to take just a couple seconds just to read what it says. Read what the timeline is. Think about when it starts, when it ends, which one's older, which one's younger, and then we're going to go through and answer the questions. All right, so the first part on the timeline I noticed is when Abraham Lincoln was born. So it's you always read left to right. So the first thing on there is when Abraham Lincoln was born, which was 1809. Then the next thing on there, make sure you do not get distracted by the boxes. You need to look at the actual points on the timeline. So you see how this one is kind of this one's closer to this box. Doesn't mean it happened next. You got to look at the points. So we have this point, then this point. So Lincoln does work for hire, such as plowing and planting. So working for hire means he'll do random jobs around where he lived, do random jobs such as plowing and planting and cleaning and stuff like that. So he worked for hire for a little bit. In 1824, Lincoln is elected to the state legislature, in 1834. Then he marries his wife, Mary Todd, in 1842. Then we have this little half line. Nothing really happened here, but we just know that this is just half. Then in 1860, so remember, look at your dots. This one happens closer, but look at your dots. Lincoln is elected the 16th president of the United States. Then in 1863, remember the dots, Lincoln issues the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing all the slaves. So that was a bill or a law now that freed all the slaves that, so slave owners couldn't own anybody anymore. So that was a really big time. So then Lincoln visits Ford Theater, where he is assassinated by John Wilkes Booth in 1865. So that's the big scene where he's in the theater and he gets shot by John Wilkes Booth. So that assassination means that he was killed by somebody else. So, so let's answer these questions. Which happened earlier? Lincoln getting married or Lincoln becoming president? Okay, so remember, which one happened earlier means which one is older. So which one happened first? So reading this one, so we have Lincoln marries Mary Todd in 1842, and then Lincoln becomes president in 1860, okay? So which one happened first? Good. Lincoln marries Mary Todd first before he becomes president because it's first on the timeline. Just comparing these two events, him getting married happened way before he became the 16th president, all right? What year was Lincoln elected president? Again, look at your dot. You can kind of measure it by looking just at the timeline. If this date wasn't here, you can just look at the timeline. So you know it's around 1950, but it's not, or 1850, but it's not close enough to the 1900s. So you would kind of guess 1860, 1870 kind of area. So, but the answer is 1860 because it gave you the answer. But if it didn't have the answer, you can kind of guesstimate where it is based on the timeline, okay? So, you know, this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 60. You could kind of guesstimate it. How many years after Lincoln was president did he free the slaves? So remember, when we try to find the year difference, we had to subtract, right? So how many years after Lincoln was president did he free the slaves? So we got to find out when he became president. So again, he became president in 1860, right? Then he freed the slaves in 1863. So how much time went by until all the slaves were free? So this one's kind of easy because you can kind of do this one in your head. But if you want to pause it and you want to work it out actually, which I would prefer, then you can do so now. Okay. So the answer would be 3. So 3 years went by. So we started at 1860, and then we went by in 1863. So that would be 3 years. So 1861, 1862, 1863. That'd be 3 years. Okay. What year did Lincoln work for hire? So remember, work for hire means that he would do pretty much anything for work if it paid. So let's look at our timeline. Abraham Lincoln was born. No, not 1809. What about Lincoln is elected to state legislature? No, that's not it. All right, what about this one? 1824. Okay, Lincoln does work for hire. So that is our answer. But again, if our year was not on our timeline, we can kind of guesstimate. So we can kind of see this one is kind of closer. It's close to, it's kind of right in the middle of 1800 and 1850. So it's kind of right in the middle. So I would guess 1820, 1830. Okay. If the year was not on the timeline, but it is on the timeline, 1824. All right, what is the span number of years shown of this timeline? So remember how I talked about the beginning and the end. That is the span, that is how long his life was. So the span wouldn't be at 1865. And I want you to think about why it would not be at 1865. Okay? So it would not be 1865. Just because he died 1865 doesn't mean the time stopped. So he was not born in 1800. He was born in 1809. So the beginning of the timeline says 1800s, and the end of the timeline would be 1900s. Okay? So that would be our time span. Would be 1800 to 1900. That would be the span. Okay? What year was Lincoln born? Again, you can kind of guesstimate, but it has the year on here, 1809. What year did Lincoln get elected to legislator? I want to make y'all figure that one out by yourself because I hope you can read. You can read, and y'all are so smart. Okay, so the answer would be 1834. So you can see it right here. Lincoln is elected to state legislature. That's the question. All right, number 8 is kind of difficult. So I want you to try to figure it out on your own. Lincoln's parents were married in 1806, so a couple of years before he was born. Could you put this event on the timeline? Yes or no? I want y'all to try to figure this one out on your own first. Okay, so Lincoln's parents were married in 1806. Okay, so 1809 is when he was born, but the beginning of the timeline starts when? 1800. So yes, correct. So we can put this on the timeline because 1800 is on the timeline. So we could put it right before Lincoln's birth. Now, what if it didn't have 1800 on the timeline? If it started at 1809, then we could not put it on there because 1809 is what? Is after 1806. So it'd be older. Okay, so we couldn't put something on the timeline if it's not on if you can't find the number on there. So like say let's go over here. So say I was born in 1998. I can't put this on this timeline because it only goes up to 1900. Okay? Same thing with this. We can put it on the timeline because it has 1806 or it starts with 1800, so we can put this on this timeline because it starts 1806. Okay? So I want you to figure out the last 2 questions on your own, and I'm going to leave you with this. So the last 2 questions is what is this timeline about and where was Lincoln assassinated at? So those are more specific questions, so I don't really need to teach you anything. It's more about reading it. But I really hope you enjoyed my lesson today. I miss you all so much, and I wish I could see you very soon. Um, Make sure you're watching my videos. I worked really hard on these. But make sure you're watching my videos. Make sure you're watching Miss Wilson's, Mr. Titus, and Miss McQuarrie's videos. All 4 of us. Make sure you're watching them. We worked really hard, and we really want y'all to learn a lot during this time. But make sure that you're taking care of yourselves too, and you're happy and healthy and doing the right thing and staying home. Okay. So again, the last 2 questions on here are what is this timeline about? And where was Lincoln assassinated at? So it doesn't say when, it says, what does it say? Where was he assassinated at? It doesn't say when, so it says where. So you can pause it or rewind it a little bit so you can just see the questions. But I miss y'all all and I love you so much. Have a great day, okay?